He's our senior manager for internet technology. He's also a dad to 2 boys, one of whom is now very active online. So this topic is something that's close to his heart. Aftab, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Noelle, for the introduction. Interesting times. So let me start. As Noelle explained, I'm Aftab Siddiqui. Some of you in this region know me for a long time. I've been part of this community and working with you guys for more than a decade now. So let's talk about something which is quite interesting to know for most of us. Most of us means parents. We are currently living and working in an unprecedented time. And I know you have heard this statement probably a million times in the last couple of weeks. But unfortunately, you're going to hear the same statement for a few more weeks. God willing, everything will be fine soon. But the challenges we are facing right now would have been unimaginable not so long ago. And to be honest, nobody expected to go through in their lifetime. The way we are working and living in self-isolation and keeping social distancing, the term which we never heard before, we have to follow it now. And you didn't plan for it until you had to just a few weeks ago. Some people were in even disbelief that it's not going to happen in their city or in their country. But to be honest, look, most of us, if not all, are working from home or staying most of the time at home. And we have our families are at home, and we have our children at home 24/7. It's good, it's amazing. You are able to spend more time with them, but there are challenges. And during this time period, our way of working has to be different. As well as we have to be resilient in order to overcome some of the stresses we are feeling and some of the issues we are facing and going through at the moment. And some of them are pretty new. We never faced it in the past. So we need to understand, we need to adapt accordingly. Our home life and work life has merged together. It's a very thin line between both of them now because since we are working from home. And so as for our kids, their playtime, their school time, and their whatever their time has all merged together as well. Why? Because schools either have been closed in many places or they are suggesting to take online classes, even if they are open. And sometimes you just have to watch your kids' school teacher posting videos on Facebook to teach their pupils. So it's very different. It's from traditional books, reading and filling up worksheets. Things have moved to online instructor-based or self-paced training or self-paced learning. It all means one thing. There are more and more screen time for the kids. So, and this is why we are talking about it today. And it's not like that it happened pre-planned. It happened all of a sudden. Not only there are many more additional kids joining the online world for the very first time, but the kids who were familiar with the online world are spending more time with their devices and on the internet. And we know that it's going to be a different world altogether moving forward. So it is better for us to understand and adapt. Just like we help kids prepare for the interaction in the physical world, it is important to show them how to be safe on the internet as well. I have heard one statement quite recently that when you first teach your kids to cross the road, first thing you teach them is hold my hand. And internet superhighway is actually more than crossing the road. So make sure that you are holding the hand when you are introducing them to the online world. So the first thing, do you know what your kids are doing online and how they are spending their time online? We all have seen the biggest downloads in South Asian region in the apps is TikTok, Likey, Call of Duty, Fortnite, all these games and everything. They have millions and millions of downloads just in Southeast Asia, and of course around the world. It's just massive. So people are spending more time on social media. Kids are spending more time on games and whatnot. Studies show most parents don't know what their kids do online, uh, and probably you know them, you know it well, but you don't know completely. Some parents don't know at all. So it's a mix. I mean, 70% of online youth in India spend more than 5 hours on the internet. Um, Probably they are studying 4 hours, but 1 hour they are doing something else. Are you aware of that? Probably not, or probably you do know that. 70% have posted their contact details like email, phone, home address. Are you aware of that? If you are, then you must be worried about that one. 53% have met someone in person that they first met online. 63% of you do not turn off their location of GPS, which is quite interesting these days. Interesting in a sense, it shouldn't have happened. 60% of parents don't know what their kids view online. Well, these are all numbers and statistics, but behind those statistics are real people, real parents, and real kids. And if you are joining this session, it means that you are one of the concerned parents or concerned party in this whole scenario. And that's why you want to learn more. And our job is to share more details with you so that you have better understanding that how to deal with these problems. So what are some of the risks children face online? I mean, there are many of them. So let's try to summarize all of them in three different categories. What do they see actually? Are they seeing cat videos? That's fine. Are they watching cartoons? Are they watching something related to their studies? That's all good. But are they watching some hate content? Are they watching something which triggering violence in them? Are they watching something which, to be honest, they are not supposed to? Anything which is age restricted, something they shouldn't be watching, right? So this is one thing. What they do afterwards? Are they posting something hateful? Are they posting something which is dangerous for them? Are they posting something which can consider as bullying? Um, are they posting something which is totally irrelevant for them but can cause problem for a lot of people? And the last most important thing is who they talk to. I mean, online world gives you an opportunity to connect with everyone, but everyone means there are bad people outside as well. So you need to know who they are talking to and what information they are sharing with them. So these are the major categories of online problem your children can face. I mean, it's a very famous term, knowledge is power. And the best way to find the details is talk to your children, talk to your kids. Tell them, I just gave you an example of crossing the road. Talk to your children about the online safety, what they can do, what they cannot do. You have to set some boundaries. Okay, fine, you can make sure you don't download anything without my permission. Make sure you don't do this without my permission or without telling me that you're gonna play this game. So set some boundaries. Choose age appropriate apps and website. These days, it is very clear, at least on the apps, most of the apps, that what age group it belongs to. You can set certain boundaries that you only use apps which are for you only. I mean, Facebook has a restriction of 13 years if you cannot create an account. I mean, if you are younger than 13 years, I mean, if you can create an account for your kid and you can use it, but not allow them to create their own IDs and things like that. Set privacy settings. Okay, so this is it's a very broad statement. Set privacy settings together. You have to sit with them. Probably they know how to use internet better than you. Probably, but you can learn from them while sitting next to them. Just figure out what are the options available which you can use to secure your information. What information you are giving to the world. Show them how to keep themselves secure. Whatever they do in their real life, they should be doing um, online as well. I mean, again, I was talking to someone and was trying to explain something, and I said, you don't go out on your balcony and start yelling and screaming about your personal information, because that information should remain private. Then why you're not doing the same practice online? It is same as sharing everything to the stranger walking on the road. So online world is not different. And what you can do to keep your kids safe online: set parental controls. So um, there are many people online right now. So I have one question to you: how many of you know that you can actually set parental controls, and you can set safe surfing on Google search or on Bing or on any other search engine? If you know, that is good. If you don't know, you should know now. um, Parental control is most important. Supervise your kids. Don't just let them use the internet on their own. Make sure that you I mean, if they are doing homework, what you do, you of course you help them out, that this is how you do it. So you do the same thing while they are online. Teach them to behave responsibly. Online world shouldn't be very different from the real world. If you teach them how to behave while they eat, while they talk to elders, while they talk to their parents or their siblings, teach them how they should be behaving online when they're talking to others. Um, it's a big world out there. In the home, you can control things, but once you're online, it's hard. So you have to teach them again and again and again. It's an ongoing process. You cannot just say, well, fine, I told you once, I think you got the message. It's an ongoing process. You have to make sure that you keep on sharing this information again and again, and sit down every now and then with them. What you can do to keep your kids safe online: assume that everything is online is permanent. There's one statement which we are quite familiar, is whatever you share online will remain forever, and there is no way you can take it down. And I mean, even if you remove it from your own account, you have no idea how many people have copied it. You have no idea how many people have viewed it already, and you have no idea how many times it has been circulated on the internet. So, and you have to be a role model for your kids. If you are yourself sharing information on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your TikTok, or whatever application you're using, or on even email, if you are doing these things yourself, you will not be able to set a role model for your kids. You have to be vigilant that what you are doing um, kids pick up from their parents, from their elders. So you have to be a role model. And sometimes it's absolutely okay to just be offline. Turn off all the devices, pick up something, and play. For me, I have handful of um, puzzle games which I play with my kid, and there are other things which we can do. I mean, we can play cricket inside the house. We all know how to play one-tip cricket. It's a very South Asian term, but all the South Asians on the and the crazy cricket fans know how to play one-tip cricket at home. We have all been doing it from our childhood. So do something which is not online. Take them off the screen, and make sure that you are off the screen as well. So again, be a role model. And there's one thing you should learn today, other than what we have already discussed. And what I have said so far is nothing out of nothing extraordinary. These are all common sense things which most of you already know, and you must have learned something new as well. But this is the most important thing you should remember. If you don't know today, learn it today here and research more about it. And that is encryption. Encryption is one of the most powerful tools parents can use to help keep their kids safe online. And how it is used? It is simple. It is called, it is used in end-to-end encryption. Um, Again, if we go back to the balcony example, if you are talking to somebody on the road and you're in your balcony, you're not going to start talking to them and sharing personal information from there, because you don't know how many people in the middle are listening. So why would you do the same thing online? You're not going to send clear message or unencrypted message. Unencrypted message is something which is in plain English or in your language of whatever you have written. And it can be viewed by any third party and it can be misused as well. What encryption does is it takes your message, it transforms into something which has no meaning, scrambled words, and then it will send it to the intended recipient, the person you want to talk to or the person you want to share the information with. And at the receiving end, it will be decrypted into the actual message, and the recipient can understand, okay, this is what you were saying. And it goes both ways. So what's happening is both devices, or whether it is phone, whether it is your laptop, whether it is your PC, are sending and receiving messages, and understanding, both of them can understand quite easily, but nobody in the middle can read anything. Whatever they see is just gibberish, scrambled words. That can be a bad guy. That person can use that information in a bad way. If you are talking to your bank, that person can actually steal your money. So you have to tell your kids as early as possible that how encryption works and what is the significance of encryption. And there are many tools which people use today to achieve this encryption. Um, um, we all are familiar with WhatsApp, but there are other tools like Signal, Telegram, and WhatsApp. All of them provide end-to-end encryption. So whatever message you send from your mobile phone can only be read by the intended recipient. Anyone reading the message in the middle will never be able to understand because it is encrypted. It has been converted into a form which is unreadable for anybody else other than the intended recipient. So make sure that you use applications which offer encryption. It is not that hard to find out if that application offers encryption. You can go into the details of that application before you start using it, and it will tell you if they are using it, any form of encryption or not. Not just application, make sure whenever you log into the website or whenever you are looking at a website or a web page, look for a lock sign. If that lock sign is there, it means uh, the messaging between you and the web server from where you are downloading the information or fetching the information is encrypted. Nobody in the middle is looking at your information. Again, if it is a bank, don't even log in to it if there is no lock sign there. Whether it is a green lock, it is a black lock, just make sure the lock is there. If it is a broken lock or it says not secure or there is a red sign, red is always wrong. So just stay away from it, right? So make sure the lock is there. Another thing, set a strong password. What our kids do usually is they set their date of birth, their first name, their last name. Thankfully, all the apps and websites are moving towards more secure password. They ask you to add numbers, add uppercase and lowercase. They do not allow you to set weak password. but tell them why strong passwords are necessary. But again, you have to practice the same thing, only then you will be able to convince your kids to do the same. Make sure the passwords are long, um, and it is different for every application. Don't just set one password for everything. If you are doing it yourself, please change your habit and teach the same thing to your kids. And just right at in the last, I would say, create a checklist. Here is the starting point. You can add more things to it. You don't have to just follow this one. You can add more. Create a checklist. Make sure that you follow the checklist every week. If it is too frequent, then every fortnightly or every month. Make sure that you are following this, and so that your kids do know that, okay, you have to follow a certain boundaries. There's, I mean, again, if you go through the list, there's nothing extraordinary in that one, but it gives you a pattern. It gives you a understanding that what is there, and how you have to protect yourself. You have to teach your kids that way. So the checklist is important, but the most important thing is you need to talk to your kids as often as possible. Security is, uh, you have to understand why you need security. You need to understand why it is important before you can implement it. So this is all I wanted to share with you. Having a kid who is using online classes now, it has become more important for me to teach him as early as possible. I never knew that. I mean, I never planned for it that he'll be using it in the preschool, but he is, and now all his assignment is online. So now I have to start teaching him how to set secure password as early as 4 years old. So this is all from my end. If you have any questions, please start doing it. Start typing it in the Q&A session. And let me hand it over to Noelle if she's around.
Thanks, Aftab. And thank you all for tuning in. And I hope you found this information useful. We've already received some questions on the chat, and I think along the way we've addressed some of those questions through Aftab's presentation. But if you do have any more questions, please do keep them coming. We'll be sticking around for another half an hour to answer questions from participants. And now we come to the Q&A part, and I'd like to turn it over to the rest of my colleagues on this call to give us even more tips on how we can protect our children online based on the questions that you posed. So me and some other colleagues are going to be asking those questions to them. And I hope that we may not be asking verbatim the questions that you have. We're trying to consolidate them by topic to make it more efficient. So one of the questions that we've had is a lot of the kids are now using Zoom for school lessons, etc. But we've also heard some news about some security risks and privacy risks around Zoom. Is it still safe for our children to be using Zoom for school and for other activities? Does anyone want to take it? Aftab, do you have any advice?
Sorry, I just broke out a little bit. Can you just repeat that question again?
No problem. So a lot of the kids now are using Zoom, I believe parents as well, to do schoolwork and to have school lectures. But we've also heard that there's been some security issues and privacy issues with Zoom recently. Would you still recommend that we use Zoom at this point in time? And is Zoom still safe to use for our children?
Okay, so I mean, we are using Zoom right now. Okay, and we all have heard what was happening with Zoom bombing and strangers dropping into classrooms and doing inappropriate things. We have all heard that, and that is real. It's not like a made up story. That was real. So without supporting one platform, but what happened quite recently, that Zoom took that feedback quite nicely, and they started giving. I mean, if you are using Zoom, you must have seen so many updates came in last 2 to 3 weeks. So they are fixing most of the things, but they cannot fix all of the things, because again, uh, they have added features, but you have to enable those features. You have to make sure that you are following the guidelines. So if somebody can, from my colleagues, if they can share that link which Zoom recently published, which gives a quick guideline that these are the features you have to enable or disable to make sure that no strangers can just jump into any conversation. Make sure all the and they also say, and we also doing it, if it's a bigger session, create a webinar like the way we have done it here, so that only the panelists, the people who have the right to share their videos or right to speak, can only speak or share the videos, not anybody else. So use the right tool, use the right measures, so that you can use it properly. Every platform has pros and cons. um, there are if you think Zoom has issues, you can of course switch to other platforms as well. But again, security features are there in every platform. We all need to understand how to use those security features to make sure that it is not insecure for our kids or for the school as well. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Aftab. We have another parent here asking if we have any recommendations for open source parental tools. Anything from?
Okay, so let me answer a couple of things. So if you know DNS, right? So what DNS is, like everywhere, the moment you write something on your web browser, www.something.com or google.com, it has to be resolved into an IP address. Without going into the details, there are some DNS services which provides parental control or parental locking. So at home, I use OpenDNS Family Shield. It is free, and it is from a vendor called Cisco, but it is OpenDNS Family Shield. You can look it up. You can use that. There's another similar service from Cloudflare. So they provide these services for families. So it restricts all the websites which are questionable, whether it is phishing, whether it is adult content, or anything which is deemed not appropriate for families or kids. So they block it anyway. So we use it at home. I would recommend using it. I mean, it's my personal experience. It works really well. So if you want to use it, talk to someone. If you don't know how to set up a DNS in your router or in your laptop or in your iPad, talk to someone who understands that. Talk to your friend, talk to your colleagues, talk to your siblings, who will be able to help you out. But try to use that. It is very important. Enable safe searching on on search engines, whether it is Google or Bing. You can enable safe search, so you cannot search something which is inappropriate. Even with the OpenDNS Family Shield or Cloudflare content filtering services, you can still search few things in Google or Bing. If you use safe search option, you will not be able to even search. So try to use that. It will add more control to your household.
Thanks, Aftab. We have another question here on if there are any apps that would restrict inappropriate content. I think we've already talked about parental controls, but there was also a suggestion for software. So I think we know that there are surveillance apps that are being marketed out there for parents to monitor what the child or the children are doing online. Is this something that we can recommend to parents?
Okay, being a parent myself, it's a personal opinion. I would say it's a strongly personal opinion. I wouldn't do that. So the first thing for me is talk talk to your kids, make sure they understand. um, I hope and I believe that you don't have to go to that extent where you have to monitor the activities of your kids in that manner. I mean, you can still monitor what they are doing. The option I gave you, OpenDNS and the Cloudflare family filtering options, they give you a complete list of what was happening from your household, what websites they watched, and what they have done. You can have a conversation with them rather than going into the full-on surveillance mode. That's my personal opinion, but people can differ and they can choose whatever they want. There are several software which can even record the screens. They can record keystrokes, everything. But in my personal opinion, you don't have to go to that extreme if you keep on engaging with your kids on daily, weekly, fortnightly basis.
Thank you. And we have another question here. Is there a particular age group where you would recommend starting online education?
I said I didn't plan for the online education for my preschool kid. So it just happened. So now I have to tell him that that how it all works. So the other day I was teaching him how to log into Khan Academy. And Khan Academy requires password. And the password can only be put in by a parent. So he was getting frustrated that why he cannot log in, and then I had to tell him that this is how it works. You cannot just log in yourself. So different times, I would have planned it for like a couple of years later, but now you have to do it today. So I think it's a good time to start teaching your kids if you haven't done so right now. We are all spending more time at home. We have time time is a luxury it used to be a luxury. It's not anymore. You have plenty of time. I hope so. Try to understand this with your kids and work it out, I would say. So no age restriction. Start as early as possible.
Thank you, Aftab. We have another question here on, I think it's a follow-up question on, is it really possible and is it agreeable for children, for parents to monitor their kids' behavior? I think we've already touched on that. And I would also like to add in that the researchers about child behavior online, as well as institutions like UNICEF who are really looking into this, they do stress that it's virtually impossible to monitor everything that your children is doing online. So what we're more inclined to encourage is really for parents to talk to them. If your children trust you, then they are more likely to have an open conversation with you about what they're doing online. If you make them aware of the risks involved, because trust me, even teenagers, they don't know that there is such a thing as online grooming. They don't know that grown men can actually victimize them. So just having that conversation with them and having it not just one time, but having it in different contexts and having it in at home, in school, would really help. And it's really the foundational it's the foundational mechanism that is most effective in protecting our children. Okay, let me also have a look at the questions, the remaining questions. So there's a lot of kids that start their online exposure watching YouTube. Is there any recommended amount of time? Say if you have a toddler starting at 3 or 4 or 5 that start to watch YouTube, is there a recommended amount of time for how much they should be allowed to go online or go on YouTube and watch their favorite shows?
So there are other parents in our panel as well, but let me, because I was reading some of the question and I saw a similar one. So it's usually up to you, whatever you think. I mean, for me, any single sitting, not more than 30 minutes, is more than enough. And for the YouTube, so YouTube also offers YouTube Kids, right? It's a more filtered version. It only provides videos which are deemed good for kids. You can set up passwords in it, and then you can set limit that for how long that YouTube Kid will run. Right after 30 minutes, it will just stop. That's it. It's not going to work unless you put a password in it. So, and then if you have set up the password, then it's up to you that you allow it or not. But that means you might have to delete the YouTube from either from your phone if you are giving your phone to your kid, or from the same iPad or tablet you are sharing with your kid. But that's the sacrifice you have to make. But I mean, I have learned it myself. It's worth it. So it works very well. It doesn't give you chat option. It doesn't give you unnecessary ads, and it's much cleaner version. And you can have a history of things that what your kid was watching. They cannot remove the history unless you put in password as well. So these are the things you can do. But again, it's more toward trust as well. If you have given up iPad or a tablet or phone to a kid, make sure that they are looking at a time clock as well, so they don't use it for endless hours.
Thanks, Aftab. So let's give Aftab a break. I have another question, but I'll pose it to another co-lead. So it's rather a trend these days for parents to be giving their kids their own devices at a young age. Is it something that we think could be appropriate? Because if we don't give the kid a device, then they see their friends having devices, and then they go back to the parents saying, well, how come this my friend has a device and I don't? So what would you recommend? Is there an appropriate age for starting to give our kids devices of their own? I think I'll pose this question to another colleague who's a parent in the group, and that would be Raj. Raj, would you have any advice for that? Oh,
Raj,
sorry,
I think you're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Got a bit too excited with the question. What we can see, I think, is that with the current pandemic, a number of schools in a number of countries have started moving classes online. So there's a couple of things we need to look at in trying to answer the question. So that's one. Number two, as was rightly put by Noelle, there's a lot of peer pressure when kids, other kids around your kids may have devices of various sorts. And then the third thing, of course, is, again, a lot of schools are looking at implementing online learning and digital learning or digital classrooms. So not giving them a device or not letting them have access to a device, I think, is not really practical anymore, particularly as we move to a very digitally based society. So I think the earlier you probably give access to the kids is probably better. However, you need to set very clear boundaries and set very clear ground rules as to what and how they should be doing on the internet and what sort of things they should be using. Now, there were a number of questions that came up in the Q&A, which in various ways were asking the same thing in terms of, how quickly, at what age do you give kids access? How do you ensure they go to safe sites? How do you ensure they are not looking at, for instance, violent or abusive material, and so on and so forth? So one very important tool to, of course, use is parental locks. Now, some operating systems have that built in. Phones and tablet devices as well, some of them have a kid-safe mode which you can enable. And then, of course, you hand it over to the child so that at least these sort of places they go to, using the device will be filtered out to some extent. Aftab also mentioned using safe DNSs, which pre-filter content based on age-appropriate content. So that's another way to do it. the fact of the matter is that where we are today, we really need to find the right balance as parents of kids who are probably in some ways more tech savvy than we are, and not trying to stop them doing things which they want to do, but ensuring that what they do is within set boundaries. There was also a few other questions. I'm answering a number of questions because, as I said, many of them were interrelated. There was another question which sort of touched on this as well, saying, how do you have that trust between the child and you as a parent when the child may want to go and access something and you say, no, you can't go and access that. So what I have done in my family circle is, have a conversation with the child and say, look, I'll give you the access, but then you also have to be responsible. That trust and responsibility, I think, are two very key things that we need to discuss with the child and say, look, I'm happy to give you access, but are you going to be responsible in the way you use it and what you do it? Now, of course, that's not 100% fix. You may get the situation where some kids will still go and look at other things and so on and so forth. But having those conversations on a regular basis and building that same trust levels you have in the offline or physical world with the child, I think will go a long way to try and ensure that, whatever they do, wherever they go online, will at least have some semblance of risk control from that perspective. Now, if you think you can stop them from doing anything online and so on, I think that's getting harder and harder every day. So being able to have the trust-based discussion with the child and ensuring they understand the responsibilities they are given in having access to the internet, I think that'll go a long way to help solve some of those issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Raj. We do have a question here for asking for recommendations on safe websites to visit. We don't have I don't have a complete list at the top of my head, but you can look at websites like kids.kaspersky. Kaspersky is a security firm, and they do have a dedicated section for kids, and websites like that would have a list of websites that are age appropriate depending on the age of your child. So there's another question here. Aside from giving children their own devices, should parents create their children's social media accounts and upload pictures of their children? So what I will say about this before I pass it on to my colleagues is that there are age restrictions. There are age limits to, say, Facebook or Instagram would require that you be 13 years old or above to open an account. Now, of course, this can be, it's not very strictly implemented. So if your child would say pose as a 13-year-old, then yes, they can open an account. But do our parents in the group have any recommendations on this? Opening your children's accounts, email, social media for them, to make sure maybe they have the right settings in place? Roger,
so I'll try and answer that. As it is, a number of social media sites have some age restrictions. Now, of course, there's no solid way to abide by them in a manner of speaking. But in terms of setting up a device, if you feel that your child should have access to that social media, some of it goes back to the comments I made earlier. You need to be able to establish that trust relationship with the child. I think parenting in today's day and age is very different to what it was, for example, when my parents were bringing me up as a child. Things have changed, and they will continue to change. So I think we have to have a bit of a reset in how we approach parenting to start off with. And then, having that discussion with the child, saying, if you want to go to this, but use this particular social media app or service, discuss the risks that there possibly will be there. But at the same time, you need to be also very firm with them to say, if they feel they're getting bullied online, for instance, or they are getting exposed to material which they should not be which they should not be viewing or listening to, that they should be able to discuss it with you. So this now goes to how the mode of parenting needs to also change. It's not that hard and fast way that I know my parents brought me up, which was the stick system. You do something wrong and you get a good whack across your backside. Now those days are gone to a large extent. So I think you need to be able to deal with your child as a peer. Of course, you'll never be a peer because you're a parent, but you need to try and see how you can change those dynamics. And it takes lots of conversations, lots of discussions with the child. You can't do it for 2 minutes by yelling at them once a week. That will not work. It literally has to be a daily conversation to see what they're doing and how you can ensure that they are safe in that manner.
Thanks, Raj. There's a couple of questions here about what is the appropriate limit in terms of the number of hours a child can spend online every day. Would parents in the group have any recommendations for that? Is 15 minutes a day enough? Is 1 hour a day enough?
So we'll try and answer this, but I'm sure someone else can jump in as well. There have been a number of studies which are talking about screen time. Some say anything more than 2 hours is bad. Some say anything more than an hour is bad. So there's different points of view. But I think anything that goes over 2 hours a day is probably getting into a bit too much. The way that I have tried to do is to say that, okay, you need to take a break. And that break has to be to do something totally different. Taking a break doesn't mean checking your email or watching TV instead. It has to be something quite different, playing a game of some sort, taking a walk out in the garden or something, or just going outside for a while, or having some sort of physical activity. Continuous use will obviously cause all sorts of issues. What I have seen, again, within my family is that, once that screen time, for example, it may be gaming or some or a whole series of videos or whatever there may be, once that starts going into the hours, the behavior of the child also starts to change. And over time, we'll see that it'll continue changing. So you need to instill some discipline in that sense and say, look, you need to take a break. And it usually means is you have to keep saying to them, hey, have you taken a break? What did you do? Read a book, for instance. So though that's some suggestions I have, but perhaps others may have some better ideas.
Do we have any other suggestions from other parents in the group? All right. So let's move on to the next question. There's a parent wondering what is the role of social media, or what role can social media play in keeping our children safe? I think we've already touched on social media platforms making tools available for parents to try and kind of corral what their children can see online. But is there anything else that we think that social media is doing that we haven't touched upon yet? Aftab, or Raj, maybe?
Okay, it's hard to give a a short answer. Of course, you cannot just our expectations are high from them. Our expectations are there that the platform should be doing things, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you. I mean, I was responding to one of the question on chat as well. You can do things to help understand the kids the consequences. You can help them understand what are the real life consequences of what they are doing online. There are numerous case studies there are numerous real-life cases which you can explain to them, saying, okay, if you do this, you know what, this is what happened actually. Sometimes the very innocent mistakes supposedly they make have real-life consequences. Platforms can do a lot of things. They are doing in some way or form. They should be doing more, but what is in your control, you should be doing it. It's very hard to answer this one. So it has a very multifaceted answer, I would say. Anybody else would like to jump in? I would. Interesting to hear.
All right. So if there is a, oh, sorry, Raj, did you want to go?
No, it's just that I sort of somewhat lost track of what the question was.
It's the role of social media in protecting our children.
So look, not everything on social media is bad, right? Obviously, there's a lot of good content out there as well. So I think you need to try and balance that out as well. The question I think you have to answer is, which social media will I give the child access to? I'm not aware of all the social media apps having parental controls. The operating system might have a parental control. Some apps have parental control, but I'm not so sure all social media apps have parental control built in. So that in itself becomes problematic. So I think you have to look at it from that perspective. Okay, is service or app A, B, and C, which one is the more kid-friendly one? If you then decide, none of them are kid-friendly, and I have to give them access to, I don't know, whatever it may be, Twitter or TikTok or Facebook or whatever else there is, then it goes back to having that conversation with the child and saying, what are you going to be using it for? It also can extend to, hey, what did you do today on it? What did you see? What did you learn today? If you ask those questions every day, then the child will know that you're interested in what they're doing online as much as you are interested in what they're doing offline when they go to school, meet their friends, go to some sort of sports event or whatever else it may be. So I think, I think I've sort of repeated this multiple times now, but the key thing I think for me, or the key suggestion I have is that you need to keep on having these conversations with children. If the conversation becomes very authoritative, you start acting as a hard parent, then you will see that the child will start hiding things from you, as they do in the physical and real world. Right? You should not treat online anything different to the offline world. Just as you teach them not to do bad things to other people physically, same thing applies online. So it's just trying to, bridge those dimensions between the offline and online worlds and ensuring that, you are having similar conversations. You are giving them similar advice and wisdom so that, they themselves can, of course, lead better lives.
Yeah. So Noelle, if you allow me quickly at 2 points. One is it's again what you do in real life, you have to do in the online life, right? You don't have to tell your kids that throwing stones at someone is bad. They know it is bad, right? So you have, because they learned it from their childhood that if you try to hurt someone, it is bad. You don't do that. But if you just simply say, don't use this application, it will not answer their curiosity. So when you say don't use this application because of X, Y, Z reason, and how it can harm them, how it can harm the family, how it can harm the whole siblings or other things, they will then understand. Don't just say simple no and just move on. And another, just trying to come back to that one, you can do as much as surveillance as you want, but it's not enough for you. If you go into that direction, it won't be enough ever. And at that time, is it agreeable to your children? And somebody was asking that. It's more, the tools are there, but are your children happy with that one? So it's more about talking to them rather than trying to do surveillance.
Thank you, Aftab. we're coming to the end of our time, so I'll just touch upon another question that's or a bunch of questions that are coming up on whether TikTok or whether house party is good or bad for children. So I think we know that TikTok is one of the most downloaded apps now in the world, especially in South Asia as well. It's either the first or the second most downloaded app last year, and it has benefits for children because it allows them to socialize, it allows them to express themselves. But there are also valid security and privacy risks. For example, there's a feed on TikTok. There's a common feed where children can be exposed to inappropriate content. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in TikTok, strangers can also contact each other. That said, so one of the things that we can recommend is to try and use the apps yourself. So try TikTok. Try using TikTok yourself. Enjoy. Well, not try and explore it. Try and see what people are saying. Try and see what you think could be the risks for your child, and try to read about it. There's been a lot of articles written about TikTok and use for children, and then you can decide. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our webinar. It's now the top of the hour. So please do stay in touch with us. We're very engaged in this topic. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, which should now be posted on the chats. If you'd like to know more about our work, you can also visit us on our website, is internetsociety.org. And we'd like to also hear from you regarding this webinar. So before you go, please do take a minute or two to answer the feedback form. On Zoom, it'll pop up after you end this webinar. And I think in Facebook, the link is now also being posted on the chat. That would really, really help us in our webinars going forward. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to answer all the questions, but thank you for joining, and have a wonderful day, afternoon, and evening. Goodbye.